Bienvenidos! Welcome to NASA Headquarters Hispanic Heritage Month event. We are so excited you've taken time out of your schedule to join us today as we celebrate our beloved Hispanic heritage. The theme of this year's program is Hispanics Be Proud of Your Past, Embrace the Future. My name is Magdia Santana and I'm the chair of the Hispanic Outreach and Leadership Alliance, also known as HOLA at NASA Headquarters. HOLA's mission is to foster awareness and promote the contributions of the Hispanic community at NASA, to create and facilitate collaborative cross-cultural opportunities, and to encourage the recruitment and professional development of a highly skilled and diverse workforce. Every year, the agency celebrates Hispanic Heritage Month, a tradition that started as Hispanic Heritage Week in 1968 and expanded to Hispanic Heritage Month in 1988. During this time, we honor the Hispanic and Latino cultures and recognize the incredible contributions made by our community. Throughout our nation's history, Hispanic Americans have significantly impacted many aspects of our daily lives. Whether it be serving in the armed forces heroically and with distinction, or being a trailblazing astronaut and conducting research in space, Hispanics have impacted every aspect of our American history. Our colorful culture, with its flavorful foods, wide-ranging musical genres, and industrious spirit, is a source of immense pride that fills our heart with a unique passion. Our deep-rooted traditions keep our customs alive, and our strong family connections and faith motivate us beyond measure. At NASA, reaching for the stars is a daily routine, and as the agency gears up for a new era of deep space exploration, Latinos will undoubtedly be an instrumental part of achieving these goals. I'm very excited about today's event and being able to share with you all in this virtual environment that most of us are operating in. Again, welcome and enjoy today's program. And now, our NASA Associate Administrator, Steve Jurczyk, would like to share some remarks.
Today's event will not only highlight and celebrate the contribution of Hispanics at NASA, but also discuss the future of NASA's workforce and the key role Hispanics will need to play when it comes to science, research, and space exploration. In order for us to continue studying our home planet, solar system, and get to the moon, Mars, and beyond, we will need all hands on deck. We will especially rely on Hispanics, the largest minority group and one of the fastest growing populations. NASA and our nation will continue to rely on Hispanics and their participation and contributions in the decades to come. The Hispanic population is large and growing. It comprises almost 18% of the U.S. population. It is racially and culturally diverse, and on average, it is a younger population. Hispanics have influenced, shaped, and strengthened the fabric of our nation since the beginning. Their contributions and achievements are America's contributions and achievements. Here at NASA, we understand that diversity and inclusion across all of our NASA centers and missions is essential to our success, and Hispanics are important in having this diverse and inclusive organization. Hispanic Heritage Month celebrations and activities look a little different this year due to COVID-19. So I'd like to give a big thank you to our Hispanic Outreach and Leadership Alliance, also known as HOLA, at NASA headquarters for planning and hosting today's program. The HOLA leadership team is an example of how NASA employees go above and beyond to help us meet our mission and goals. Employee resource groups like HOLA work tirelessly to not only plan events and special programs, but also serve as advisors to NASA senior leaders on issues of workforce, outreach and engagement, and diversity and inclusion. Thank you and enjoy the program.
Muy buenas tardes. Es un placer estar hoy aquí con ustedes. Good afternoon. It's such a pleasure to be here with you today. My name is Maria Santos, and I serve as the Executive Officer for NASA's Office of the Chief Scientist, as well as the Communications Manager for the Hispanic Outreach and Leadership Alliance Group, also known as HOLA, the organization hosting today's event. The individuals that you will be hearing from today are amazing NASA professionals. They were selected because of their incredible personal stories, notable achievements, and because they represent or can influence the future of our agency, the future of science, research, technology, and space exploration. I'm so thrilled to have with us today NASA's Associate Administrator for Communications, Mrs. Bettina Inclán, Dr. Frank Rubio, Dr. Erika Podest, NASA's Chief Scientist, Dr. Jim Green, and Dr. Clara O'Farrell. Now, let's get started. The agency is sending the first woman and next man to the moon by 2024. So now let's speak with someone who will lead in this area, Dr. Frank Rubio. Dr. Rubio, thank you so much for being here with us today. Could you please share a little bit about yourself, your background, and your career prior to joining NASA?
Buenas tardes, María. Mucho gusto y muchas gracias. Es un gran honor estar con ustedes ahora. All right, so that's going to be the only Spanish you're going to get out of me today. Yeah, so, my family's from El Salvador. I grew up in Los Angeles initially, but, I was born in Los Angeles, but then lived the first 6 years of my life in El Salvador. Came back to LA, lived in a variety of different places, and then completed high school in Miami. So I think my childhood, made me really comfortable being in a variety of locations with a wide diversity of people and just comfortable exploring. I remember riding my bike as a 10-year-old through all of LA. And so being able to take risk at a young age was something that just kind of came naturally. And all that prepared me for a 20-year career in the military. The first half of that career I spent flying Blackhawks. And then the second half, I was a family medicine physician working in the clinic and then also with special operations. After that, I joined NASA in 2017 as part of the Turtles. I've been here now for 3 years, and I'm loving this job and in my dream job now.
Could you tell us a little bit about your time in El Salvador?
Yeah, again, I was pretty young. I mean, I came back when I was 7. It was in the middle of a civil war. And so, from an outsider's perspective, it probably wasn't the best time to be a kid in El Salvador. But what I remember is friends playing soccer, celebrating Christmas, the fireworks, the food, and really just a great childhood despite what was going on around us. I had a loving family. My grandma, my cousins, and my uncles were all there, and so for me it was great. And I hope to be able to give back to that country. It gave a lot to me early on, and I hope to be able to give back by representing my family in what I do now and in the future.
I would like to now go to Dr. Erika Podest. Could you please share a little bit about your upbringing in Panama?
Soy panameña, nací y me crié en Panamá, en la ciudad de Panamá. I am from Panama. I was born and raised there. And my childhood was very much spent outdoors. My parents loved the outdoors. My father was an adventurer and explorer. And so every weekend we were out exploring, hiking, swimming, fishing, you name it. And so Panama is a small country with this exuberant nature, lush rainforests, beautiful beaches, amazing flora and fauna. And so spending time in this environment really inspired me from a young age, not only loving nature and loving being outside, but also in a curiosity in learning about nature and a desire to protect it.
Tell me, do you feel that your Hispanic identity has contributed to your personal and professional success?
Absolutely. My Hispanic identity is part of my core. In fact, sometimes people don't remember my name, but they'll remember that I'm from Panama. So I think my Hispanic identity makes me different in a positive way, kind of a novelty. And I think it's very enriching to have this deep perspective of my identity, bringing my Hispanic identity and living in the U.S. culture. Also, a big component of my Hispanic identity is my language, Spanish, and that has taken me very far, especially in being able to communicate my science to Spanish-speaking audiences.
Now speak with Dr. Clara O'Farrell. Thank you so much for being here today. Could you please share a little bit about your journey from Argentina to the United States?
Muchas gracias, María. Muchísimas gracias por la invitación. Yo soy de Buenos Aires, Argentina. Creo que el acento me delata, es bastante obvio. But yes, I am from Buenos Aires, Argentina. That's where I call home. Like Dr. Rubio, I was actually born in the States. My parents lived in the US for a couple of years in the 80s, and that's when I was born. But my family returned to Buenos Aires when I was 3 months old, and I grew up there. I'm the oldest of 3 girls. And like Dr. Podest was saying, Argentina is, I would say, almost as beautiful as Panama. but it's a beautiful country, and I had an opportunity to explore a lot of it. I had family all over the country, and as a kid, I loved being outside. I loved animals. I loved playing outside. My mom's a veterinarian. So I think that's what first drew me to science, was loving animals, the outside, and loving just Argentina as a country. Then, of course, I grew up a little, and I realized that being in the life sciences was more than just playing outside and playing with animals. So I think that's around when I decided that I was better off being an engineer and getting a dog. But growing up in Argentina was wonderful. But I always knew that I was, I had been born in the States, so I always had a particular curiosity for this country. And I, was always, watching movies from here, researching about it. And I had this dream to come back at some point and be in scientists here, because I'd heard the stories of my parents, when they lived here in the 80s and their friends went to college here. So I actually moved to the US on my 19th birthday to come to college here. I studied aerospace engineering, and then I went on to get a PhD in applied math, and I joined NASA in 2013. And I am now an entry, descent, and landing engineer working on the Mars Perseverance rover, which will be arriving at Mars on February 18th of 2021.
Now, I'm so thrilled, Bettina, again, that you are here with us today. You, in your role, manage all of internal and external communications for NASA. So thank you for taking the time. Could you share a little bit about the woman behind the brand?
Thank you, Maria, y gracias a todos. It's a pleasure and an honor to be part of such a great group of people. And yeah, as you mentioned, I'm the Associate Administrator for Communications at NASA, and I love working at this agency. I agree with Frank, best job I've ever had. And I'm really excited to be part of this panel, because NASA, we do a lot of discovery and science and exploration, but there's a lot of people behind the scenes like myself who don't have necessarily science backgrounds, love science, but are a big important part of the mission, because in my job is I help communicate, I help build that brand. And I'd say that I joke around with fellow friends who are also Hispanic in communications, is we grew up translating for our families. So we're very good at not just translating words, but concepts and ideas, and figuring out how different audiences are going to accept it. Like a few of us, I'm from Florida, born and raised in Miami, Florida. I'm a proud American of Hispanic descent. My mom is a Cuban exile. My father is a Mexican immigrant. And everything I am is because of their sacrifices and the efforts they have done to live in this country. My mom came when she was very young, and she was 3 years old when she came to this country. Her father, my grandfather, was a political prisoner in Cuba. So most of her life was defined of trying to get him back, reunited with the family. She didn't see him again until she was 17 years old. So that really defined a lot of the stuff in our lives, and defined my passion for this country and for public service. And it made a huge indent in what I wanted to do and give back to the community. My father's a Mexican immigrant, and that rich culture and that big beauty and all the sacrifices he's made also to live in this country defined who I am. And I'm really lucky to be here at NASA. Like I said, love the job, and we communicate with hundreds and millions and billions of people around the planet to talk about the incredible work they've done. I've been in communications for about over 20 years, and now lead a really great team in sharing those stories, and excited to be here today.
What does it mean to you, whose parents were immigrants to this country, and now, being the first Latina to have this role at NASA? What does that mean? What do you think it means to them? What does it mean to you? Or what do you hope it means to others?
I think, for one, I know that I'm very lucky for the opportunity I've had in my life. I know that I feel sometimes I have to work harder maybe than some other people to show what I can provide. But I also know that the reason where I am is because someone opened that door, someone made sure that they made it space at the table. So I make sure that I play it forward. I'm excited, this semester we have all 5 interns that work here within my team that are of diverse backgrounds, and we're always finding opportunities on how to make sure that we make space at the table for diverse populations, make space to make sure that different points of views are expressed. I also know that representation matters. And while not everyone needs to see it to be it, I know that it made a difference for me. And I say a silly story. When I was little, I loved Barbie, right? Like a lot of people like Barbie, but all the Barbies were blonde. So I wanted to be blonde. And I got my mom to like buy me a blonde wig. And then, so my mom started buying me Barbies with like dark hair. And most of them were Asian Barbies. So I grew up with a bunch of like Asian Barbies, but because she just wanted people that had my hair color, had my eye color, and I could connect. And it's kind of silly, but I think representation matters. And I think one of the big things that I love about what we're doing now with the Artemis program is that we're talking, and we have Frank Rubio here, on how we are going now to the moon with a group of people that represent all of America. We have all these different backgrounds. And I know that when I travel the country with the administrator or the work that we do, we hear stories, or I get emails of how they're inspired. They're inspired to think bigger, that they could too go to the moon or to Mars because a story they read or a picture they saw, they connected with. So that's important. And I think that that's a big thing of what the Office of Communication and the entire communications enterprise does, is work with the agency to make sure that we are connecting with as many people as possible.
You just talked a little bit about the Artemis program. So we are so thrilled actually to have with us NASA's chief scientist, Dr. Jim Green. So I would love to ask Dr. Jim Green if he could share a little bit about himself and his role as chief scientist.
Well, Maria, it's just a delight to be here on this panel. Now, I was born and raised in Middle America, and I was inspired by my teachers. My high school chemistry teacher gave me all kinds of opportunities, and I got so excited about working in an observatory that I knew when I went to the University of Iowa, I'd get a degree in science, in space science in particular. Now, I had no idea I would end up being the NASA chief scientist, and I have worked at NASA now for about 40 years. But this is a really important role. You know, it's my job to advise the administrator on all kinds of science that NASA's doing, pointing out what the top things and the top discoveries that we are making. You know, I represent and promote NASA's strategic objectives and science accomplishments to national and international science communities, along with other government agencies and on Capitol Hill. But I tell you, I really enjoy talking to the public, getting them excited, bringing them along to this fabulous journey that we're on, and that is forward to the moon and then on to Mars.
Dr. Rubio, could you tell us about the process of you becoming an astronaut? Why did you feel it was the right time for you to go through this?
You know, it's important to note that I think if you ask 50 astronauts how or why they wanted to become astronauts, you're going to get 50 very different answers. And that's because we all had just different journeys. For me, you know, I've always loved adventure, but deep down inside, I'm also a little bit nerdy. I love science. I love math. And this was a great opportunity to kind of join those two things. And, you know, one of the things that I love the most about the Army and is just as prominent, if not more so here at NASA, is being a part of a team that's bigger than yourself and contributing to something that means so much, not just for NASA, not just for America, but for the world and for humanity. And I think the exploration that we're doing, the science that we're developing, and the technology that we're going to bring back, I think it's world changing. And I really think to be a small part of that, you know, whether it's me going on those missions or my friends going on those missions and me supporting them to the best of my ability, it's going to really, I think, give back to, like Bettina said, give back to the people that have sacrificed so much to help me be where I am today.
Dr. Podest, could you share a little bit about the work that you do at NASA, the type of science that you do, and how your work contributes to better understanding of our planet?
So I'm a climate scientist at JPL, and I use satellite data to study the climate impacts on two very important terrestrial ecosystems. Those are wetlands and the vegetation in the northern high latitudes. These ecosystems, they absorb a large amount of carbon dioxide, which is a greenhouse gas, from the atmosphere. And the concern is whether increasing temperatures or changes in water availability are affecting the ability of these ecosystems to absorb large quantities of CO2. So it's fascinating work because I get to use state-of-the-art technology up in space to not only study and better understand these ecosystems, but also to monitor them and see how they're changing through time.
How about we transition and talk about Mars for a little bit? Dr. O'Farrell, could you please tell us a little bit about the work that you do at NASA and your contributions to the Mars Perseverance rover, which we just launched in July?
Thanks, Maria. Yeah, I was fortunate enough to work on the team that designed and tested the supersonic parachute that we are going to use to land the Perseverance rover on Mars. So we call it a supersonic parachute because we deploy it when we are going faster than the speed of sound. We're going around 1.7 times the speed of sound. So if you think about, going back to the Apollo missions, when Dr. Rubio, actually, may I call you Frank? I'm going to call you Frank. So when Frank, goes to space and comes back to Earth, the density of the atmosphere here on Earth is a lot more dense than that of Mars. So what that means is that we can afford to wait until the capsule has decelerated below the speed of sound to deploy the parachutes. At Mars, we don't have that luxury. The density of the atmosphere of Mars is about 1% that of Earth. That means we have to deploy the parachute when we're going faster than the speed of sound. So our team worked on developing the parachute to do that. It is about 100 feet in diameter. It's the largest supersonic parachute used ever. I was lucky enough to be a part of that team, which conducted 3 successful tests of the Mars Perseverance parachute. In fact, on our second test, we actually broke the record for the highest load ever survived by a supersonic parachute. And then about 5 months later, we actually broke our own record again, which was very exciting. As Frank was saying, one of the great things about working at NASA is being a part of something greater and working with amazing people and incredible teams. So I felt like I was really fortunate to be a part of that.
I would like to speak momentarily to Bettina. Coming to NASA, could you tell me a little bit about what surprised you the most about coming into this agency, and what do you feel has been your most important contributions thus far?
I don't know if I was surprised. I was just so excited to be part of NASA. Growing up in Florida, I went up to the Space Shuttle launch. I still remember very vividly laying on the ground as you felt the rocket launch into space. So it was one of my, I was just excited. And my dad, though he couldn't transfer, that what he did in Mexico over the United States, but in Mexico, he did teach science, and it's something that he gave me a great love for. So I was really excited to start this career at NASA and continue my communications work here. But I've just been impressed by the incredible stuff. At NASA, we make the impossible possible. Our teams love figuring out how to make something work, solve problems. And I love being around that team of people that do that. As far as things that I'm proud of, and we've done a lot of stuff that it would be boring to the people at home, of making sure that we have a much more strategic communications effort. But events like the Artemis astronaut graduation that Frank was a part of, we created that event. It was the first time we ever did a public graduation for astronauts, and how that connected with people around the world was just incredible and fascinating, and was really exciting. We launched American astronauts from American rockets on American soil, and those programs have been, we redid how we communicated to the public as we returned human spaceflight to America, and those programs were really great. And with COVID just recently, how we've done NASA at home and created that content. On the Hispanic, focusing just on our community, we worked really closely with the Science Mission Directorate and created a strong community of Spanish communicators here at NASA, Spanish language communicators, I should clarify, at NASA, building on all these different capabilities and really creating a community where we support each other, strengthening each other's work, and figure out new and innovative ways to communicate what NASA is doing, not only to Hispanics here in the United States, but to Spanish language speakers around the globe.
On a personal note, you mentioned the astronaut graduation. I was born in El Salvador, so that was a huge event for us. So, Bettina, thank you so much for your role in making that happen. Dr. Rubio, can you tell me, were you surprised by the warm reception that you have received from the Salvadorian community?
I was a little bit, and I think that's my personality. One, I honestly just didn't think they would find out, right? It wasn't like I was telling anybody. And I didn't really appreciate the weight that comes with this position. Like Bettina said, the whole see it to be it thing. In my mind, being Hispanic is absolutely part of who I am. It's part of my core. It's shaped who I am. But I think I've always seen myself as an American soldier, or as an American pilot, and as an American doctor. And being Hispanic was never secondary. It was just who I was. And I think maybe I was too busy doing what I was doing to really appreciate that part of it. And so in the past 3 years, I've really come to realize how important it is to shine a light on the Hispanic community. Just again, in this panel, we have a common language, but we all come from very different backgrounds, right? Cuba, Panama, Argentina, El Salvador, they're all very distinct cultures. And I think the more we can shine a light on the richness that the Hispanic community brings to America, the better off we're going to be as an American society.
Dr. Green, we're super honored to have you be part of our program today. But I would like to ask you, why did you feel that it was important to participate in this type of event?
Well, these type of programs are really important. Not only do they allow us to celebrate the work and contributions of our Hispanic employees, but they provide role models for everyone in the public to see. As Bettina mentioned, she identified with the dolls that she was able to have, and that aspiration is so important. So those role models allow then a diverse community, Hispanic Americans and others, to really see that they can contribute to NASA. Now, this is important because I understand the importance of diversity when it comes to building successful teams. One of the best things NASA does is build teams. And we want to highlight our diversity. We want to show that a diverse set of individuals providing different perspectives really enable us to make things happen. It enables us to come up with new and unique ideas that we can implement from engineering and into science. So I personally think the agency's come a long way in these areas, and we still have some work to do. But what will happen next as we go to the moon, where we, in 2024, will have the first woman and the next man, or perhaps the next woman, step on the surface of the moon. It will be electrifying. Now, I can tell you that. I think I'm probably on this panel the only one that actually saw the landing of the Apollo astronauts on the moon. I was in high school and then went into college as the Apollo program continued. And it was absolutely riveting. So these are going to be really exciting opportunities for us to engage the public and talk about the diversity of our workforce and the importance of inclusion and bringing new and diverse people into our agency to work with us.
Dr. Podest, we all know how important STEM education is. In your case, let's dive a little deeper. Why is earth science important, and what kind of engagement or involvement would you like to see from Hispanics when it comes to climate change?
So earth science is important because human activities are related to interactions with our planet. And climate change has a tremendous impact on the health, livelihoods, and just the overall well-being of humans, including Hispanics. So I would love to see more Hispanics pursuing careers in earth science or just learning about earth science on the side. There are many resources now online where you can learn about earth science and all of the amazing things that NASA is doing towards better understanding our planet. There's a really good website called climate.nasa.gov, just a really great source of information about climate change. But it's also very important to be aware of what's going on in our communities and to be connected with our environment. So building on my experience, I think that being outside and enjoying nature and learning about it through hands-on activities is also very important. And this can be through school activities or through even family activities. So I really think that the more you appreciate something, the greater the desire to learn more about it and to protect it.
Dr. O'Farrell, earlier you mentioned about the work that you did with the Mars Perseverance rover and the parachutes. Could you talk a little bit about why this rover is different from the previous rovers that we've sent to Mars?
I think it's a very exciting mission because for the first time we're sending a rover to Mars with the express objective of trying to answer the question, was there ever life on Mars? So this is one of the most fundamental questions we can ask ourselves as humans. Like, are we alone? Is there life out there? But so this time, for the first time, we've chosen our landing site. It's Jezero Crater, which is an ancient lake bed. We are taking the instruments that we need. In addition, for the first time, we are going to drill into the surface of Mars, and we're going to capture samples of the Martian soil, put them in hermetically sealed containers so that a future mission can bring those samples back so that we can study them here on Earth. In addition, as a technology demonstration mission, for the first time, we are going to attempt to fly on another planet. We are taking a small helicopter and we are going to demonstrate the possibility of flying this helicopter on the atmosphere at Mars. In addition, we are also paving the way for future crewed missions to Mars. So we're preparing for astronauts like Dr. Rubio to lead a mission to Mars. So I hope all of you will stay tuned on February 18th, because in addition, for the first time, we're also going to have cameras trained on our system during the whole entry, descent, and landing sequence. So all of you are going to get a front row seat to the entry, descent, and landing. Now, the process of landing on Mars for the first time. So that's super exciting.
Dr. Green, could you tell us a little bit about some of the science that will be conducted over these next few years?
Well, let me dwell a little bit on Mars because, Clara, as you know, we're depending on that chute working, all right? That's absolutely got to happen.
No pressure.
It's all on your shoulders.
No pressure.
All right, no pressure. Not only is our Mars program something that we're really proud of, but in this next decade, we're first going to go to the moon and interrogate it like we've never done before. We have found out that in the north and south poles of the moon, in regions where large craters have created a location for which the sun does not shine in, that water is accumulated over its existence of 4.5 billion years. By going in these places, we can determine the history of the moon, but that means also the history of the Earth.
I would like to circle back to Dr. Rubio. What are you looking forward to the most about going into space?
I'm really, really excited. Obviously, the microgravity environment is going to be great. Being able to float around, I think it's going to be fantastic. But for me, I think being able to look back on Earth from that perspective is going to be the thing that I appreciate the most. I think the uniqueness of our planet, how special it is, and how important it is to cherish it and protect it. It just means a lot, right? That probably has to do with the fact that I have 4 kids and how important it is for me to give them a good future. Not financially, but as far as the planet that we give to them. And so, I'm really looking forward to having that perspective. And it's something that I can't wait to do.
Dr. Podest, could you tell us how is NASA research helping or affecting Earth's environment, or anything else that you would like the public to be aware of?
Yeah, sure. So NASA plays a critical role when it comes to people's everyday lives. Through its fleet of satellites and sensors in space, it's providing continuous information about our atmosphere, our oceans, and our continents that help us better understand our planet and the changes it's undergoing. So, which in turn educates us about our home planet and also provides critical information about just day-to-day things, weather forecasting, droughts, disasters. NASA has a whole applied sciences program that provides information about disasters, floods, earthquakes, for example. And so all of this information is very important for decision makers so that they can appropriately decide how to best mitigate and adapt to a changing environment.
Bettina, in the past, you have said that you are very passionate about empowering women in underserved communities, especially Hispanics. Could you share a little bit more about that, perhaps provide examples of how it is that you are, paving the way for other Latinos or Hispanics?
Some of the efforts have been, just expanding our efforts to engage the Hispanic community through incredible content, be it in English or in Spanish, making sure that we have representatives of all different walks of life that connect with a different community. I mentioned internship within our office, but in general, NASA does a really good job of engaging Hispanics. About 14-15% of our interns here at the agency are of Hispanic descent. And, there's a lot of the things that we as an agency are doing to engage the Hispanic population, including specific stuff. Our lead recruiter for the agency is Hispanic, so he does a great job, and it helps Ochiko and bring in more Hispanics into the agency, and we do better than most other federal agencies to bring in Latinos. Of course, it's something, as you correctly mentioned, it's passion for my life, for a lot of the reasons that many of the panelists have discussed. Like being Hispanic is something I am in every fiber of my being. And as I now raise 2 small kids, and that might reflect on dance parties that have like both, mariachi music and salsa or like blasting Shakira at the top of the top volume, just engaging them in the culture or the food, and showing them how fortunate we are to the opportunities that we have in this country, and playing it forward of opening opportunities for others. I know that I've faced challenges throughout my career, and sometimes those are for different reasons, and sometimes it is stereotypes of people of what they think it is to be Hispanic, and making sure that we bust those stereotypes and stereotypes and open opportunities for others, and making, like I mentioned before, making space for different types of people so they also have a foot in the door and a seat at the table.
Dr. O'Farrell, Dr. Rubio mentioned the importance of Hispanic community. Bettina talked about the importance of representation. What advice do you have for little Latinas around the world who are interested or may be interested in science, technology, and space exploration? What would you say to them, as well as their parents?
I think, particularly as a woman growing up in Latin America, I wouldn't be here if my parents hadn't encouraged me, or also, at any time my parents could have said no, and that was it, right? That would have been it. So we can't really underestimate the role that parents play here. So I think it's really important, to support your children and not underestimate the role that you play in here, because as you can see, we've had some amazing, successful Latinos come out of here, which is really amazing. But so I'm not naive about the challenges that, us as Hispanics, and particularly as Hispanic women trying to get into STEM fields face. I'm not naive about that. I realize that I've been extremely blessed, extremely fortunate, and I don't want to underplay that. But on the other hand, I think because of quite a few technological advances that have happened in the last couple of decades, in a lot of ways, there is no better time to be trying to get into these fields. A lot of these resources that maybe weren't as available to kids in mostly minority communities or elsewhere in Latin America are now available because of the maker movements and things like that. Experiments that were only available to students and perhaps some of the most privileged schools in the world are now things that you can do at home, or that you can do, that schools can afford to do. So there's been a great broadening of access to science and technology education. So there's a lot of really great resources out there for students and for parents. So I'd encourage you to take advantage of that. We've also seen the rise of new launch providers, which are really broadening access to space. So you're seeing a lot of countries that before maybe weren't big players in the space exploration game, just undertaking more ambitious missions. I mean, my own home country, just launched what is only its 5th ever science satellite, entirely built at home. So you're seeing a lot more countries in Latin America going into space exploration. You're seeing universities in Latin America having, the opportunity to build CubeSats. So students and universities back in our home countries are getting the opportunity to work on that. In the U.S., you're seeing, more minority-serving institutions having the opportunity to, work on these projects. So that's really exciting. It provides a huge opportunity, I think, for the Hispanic community. And then, there's also all of the small businesses and the job opportunities that come with that. So I think in a lot of ways, it's a really, really exciting time.
Well, Dr. Podest, let's talk a little bit about the future. If you could travel 50 years into the future, what changes or advances would you like to see in the areas of earth science?
Yeah, so I think earth science is going to continue growing, especially with new observing sensors being launched into space by NASA and by other space agencies that NASA collaborates with. I think there's going to be more Hispanics in earth science and in leadership positions as well. And in terms of what am I doing to prepare those future scientists, I like to support STEM activities. And as all of the panelists here have mentioned, the importance of being a role model. And I feel I feel a strong desire to give back to my community. And so I try to really focus on 3 things: either educate, inspire, or break those prototypes through my involvement with STEM activities. And recently I was involved in a very special STEM activity in my home country in Panama. It was called Mentes Curiosas en la NASA. That stands for Curious Minds at NASA. And it was it was a TV program, and it was organized by the U.S. Embassy in Panama and a state-owned TV called CERTV. So the program was nationally broadcast, and it was targeted towards students who were studying from home during the quarantine. And every week, someone from NASA talked about their work and also answered questions through an interactive session. So there were a total of 10 NASA speakers covering topics from climate change, oceans, citizen scientists, exoplanets, Mars, Curiosity and Perseverance, space weather, communications through the Deep Space Network. So it was really, really exciting. Lots of students from the most remote places in the country were following the program and interacting with questions. And it was really just inspirational and very fulfilling to see this level of information and excitement about everything going on at NASA get to these students. So I hope to continue to be involved in such activities in the future and continue giving back. I think that Hispanics are the greatest influencers, ambassadors, and mentors to other Hispanics.
Bettina, as you know, the Hispanic population is over 18% of the U.S. population and growing. What does this mean for NASA and the future of the agency, in your opinion?
Yeah, and I just want to jump on the comments we just heard, and all the panelists have been really saying it's like, I assume a lot of people that might be watching this are of also Hispanic descent and curious about just the Hispanic influence at NASA. And you bring up a great point, like right now, 1 out of every 4 kindergarten kids, or almost a quarter of people from K through 12 are of Hispanic descent. And it is a pivotal time to engage them in interest in STEM and interest in science. I know that, I really loved science as a kid, but sometimes, I don't know if there wasn't a lot of programs to really strengthen that a lot. But I think now we live in such an incredible time. There's so many resources, as I already pointed out, on the internet and through other ways that really encourage students to get more into science careers, into interest in STEM. And be it a scientist or an engineer or a science communicator like myself, there's lots of opportunities. But it really is key right now to engage them, get them involved, and help them in that direction. So not only for them to compete in these jobs for the future, but for our country to stay competitive as a nation, because there's lots of countries who are interested in science and education. We want to make sure that our kids have bright opportunities for really the future of what this world has in store, is these kind of job opportunities, and continue this exploration not only on this planet but throughout the solar system.
What is NASA doing to prepare the future workforce to ensure that NASA continues to be a leader in science research and technology and space exploration?
Well, I think NASA's doing a lot of the right things, and in fact, by having a mission that says we're going to explore space, we're going to use space for the benefit of humanity, by looking at the Earth, by going to different planets, by comparing what's happening on those planets, and understanding what's happening on Venus can happen on Earth. And so what is the physics? What is happening here? By acquiring data, NASA will indeed continue to be on the forefront of these new scientific advances. And with just a couple of the missions that we already talked about, like Perseverance, and of course, James Webb Space Telescope, and many others that will also follow those missions. But in reality, we have to be able to give back to the public that provides that opportunity for us to do these fantastic things by telling them what we're doing, by encouraging them to get involved. And we're doing that in a whole host of ways. We're creating more and better partnerships, not only with our university community, but also in the populace by having citizen science programs. Citizen science has just exploded, in particular now that we have really learned more how to use our electronic and virtual means to be connected with more people in the United States and around the world. We can actually have our people in the United States talk to scientists, get involved in a program where they're contributing to a certain scientific goal. There's so much data that we've acquired. We really need help looking at it. We really need help analyzing them. And if those are the kind of things that excite you, then there's plenty of opportunities to get involved in. Now, in addition to that, NASA's also partnering in new and unique ways with a variety of industries that also want to go into space. NASA's been a big proponent of supporting commercial activities, allowing these commercial activities to be able to build rockets and send those supplies that we need to space station. And now, of course, astronauts going to space station. This frees up NASA to go beyond low Earth orbit and really explore the moon in new and unique ways. So there's a number of these kind of things that NASA's doing. Now, for new opportunities, for summer programs and for internships and how to understand and get involved in just the few things that I mentioned, you can always go to www.nasa.gov, go in that search window, put in interns, and then find out what internships are available. NASA has 10 centers, and those centers are spread around the United States. So there may be one in your local area. So it's it's up to us to tell the people in the United States what we're doing, what we're up to, and provide them the opportunities because we want them to get involved.
Dr. Green, NASA recently unveiled a new inclusion initiative. In your role as chief scientist, how can you support these types of initiatives to ensure increased diversity and inclusion of Hispanics across NASA?
Well, I really love NASA embracing the inclusion idea because indeed it really is so important for us to be able to ensure that we enhance the diversity of our program. You know, as you mentioned, the population in the United States is about 18% Hispanic, and I think NASA has about 8% of its population are Hispanic. And so we have actually a lot of room to grow, and we really need to move out into that direction. So this is so important for us to allow our employees to feel valued, included, and provide opportunities for their contributions and to be recognized. So NASA's leadership in this area has been extremely important, and we want to get behind it and allow it to grow.
I want to take a moment to say thank you to our panel members here today. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedules. You guys are amazing. I am inspired. I'm in awe of you. You guys are a wonderful representation of Hispanic community, not only at NASA, but across the country and across the world. So thank you again for being here with us.
Thank you, Maria. Like you said, that was a great conversation. Before we go, I would like to say and wish Happy Heritage Month to all Hispanics. Thank you to all our panelists for sharing all your expertise and all the personal stories. That was really inspirational. Thank you. Today's event was more than celebrating the Hispanic community. It was also celebrating the core value of inclusion, the spirit of exploration, and the enthusiasm for the future of science, technology, and engineering. Today's event was also possible for all the support of our senior leaders, for the Office of Diversity and Equal Opportunity, our Office of Communications, our NASA TV team, and of course, the special thanks to our OLA board leadership and to all the Hispanics across the NASA community. For all of you listening, thank you for joining. For now, stay safe and healthy. Adios.